Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the podcast. Ooh, that's garbage. Ooh, that's so bad. Oh, that's so awful. Why am I like this? Up above, you can see that this is being recorded on Mother's Day, which is probably why the boys aren't here today. But we're also going to be talking about the genocide. Oh, I shouldn't be saying that. The unaliving of a ton of people in Palestine by the Israeli government. I don't know how else to word that without, censorship and all that. But that's happening. And right now, there are people being unalived in Rafah. Let's just get into this, though. So for any of you that are unfamiliar, I figured I would get into the history of what is going on in the area. And the website here, remix.aljazeera.com, it kind of goes through most of it, not all of it. But I figured we kind of start here today. But 1799, we see that Napoleon offers Palestine as a homeland to the Jews in a way of a way to kind of set an uprising, per se. But as you can see right here, his appeal was widely publicized, but it was ultimately defeated. This was in the land of Acre, more in itself. But in 1882, we see Rishon LeZion, a major Zionist settlement, is established in Palestine. And in 1885 is where we really see the term Zionism be first coined. Right after that, though, in 1896, we have Theodor Herzl. He published Der Judenstaat, calling for the creation of a Jewish state. You can see where kind of this is heading to. And in 1897, the first Zionist Congress, which was held in Switzerland, that was the first Zionist organization that was founded in itself. Herzl with Birnbaum and Nordau convened on the first Congress in the Swiss city of Basel. I could go into more detail with some of this stuff. If you want to see it, go ahead and look it up. But I just want to give you a timeline of events so you can kind of understand where a lot of this animosity, I guess you would say, coming from most of the world is coming from, because we've all learned this. And if we didn't, as you can see, we can look it up. But let's keep going. 1907. The Zionist leader Chaim Weizmann first visits Palestine for the first time. And in 1908, Palestinian writer Najib Nassar publishes Al-Carmel newspaper opposing Zionist colonization. In 1915, Zionist British cabinet member Herbert Samuel writes The Future of Palestine, a secret memorandum that was calling on his cabinet and colleagues to support Zionist settlement in Palestine. As you're probably starting to understand already by hearing settlement multiple times, this is just the ongoing imperial colonial effort from the Western powers, in which case right now, and when I'm speaking, is still the British Empire. The British decided to kind of use this land as a spot to put Jewish people, which in itself is anti-Semitic because they already had land, they just didn't want to use their own. It's fucking dumb. Where were we, though? 1916. Sykes-Picot secret agreement is signed dividing the Middle East between the French and the British. Now, I do believe that this was during, this was on the tail end of World War I. So this was, in the middle of it all while fighting the Ottomans still, which is why a lot of this stuff was going to be split up. Which then brings us to 1917 with the Balfour Agreement. Or the Balfour Declaration, rather. Britain promises a Jewish national home on Arab land. And this is where things start to really get bad for most of the people that were already living in the area. Because remember, Palestinians are not just Muslims. They're not just Arab. Many of these people are Christians. Many of these people are Eastern Orthodox Christians. Many faiths come from this area. Let's see, 1919. Washington's King Crane Commission is conducted on the future of Palestine. Yeah, so the Great War ended in 1918, and peace preparations were made for the conference. And this is where a lot of this was brought up. Dr. Hill Cohen, historian from 1919 onward, the Zionist movement understood that focusing on foreign policy wasn't enough. We had very good relations with London, representatives in New York, Washington, Berlin, Paris, and so on. These people played the long game. 1922. The League of Nations approves the British mandate for Palestine and its purpose of helping establish a Jewish homeland. Then in 1929, Al-Barak Uprising takes place, the first mass protest against increased Jewish immigration into Palestine. And understand that in this area, people were already living, so they were having to be pushed out of the homes that they are already living in. Stuff that you've been seeing for decades now. 1933, mass protests against Jewish immigration of Palestine again. The British authorities became ever more heavy-handed in this time, and protests against Jewish immigration were becoming ever more frequent, and the Palestine women took part side by side with men. The British authorities cracked down on these demonstrations and arrested thousands. You've been seeing people be cracked down on for protesting the unaliving of so many people, which somehow people still try and say isn't the definition from the UN, but it is. These type of crackdowns have been happening for decades. Decades. 1935. Izz ad-Din al-Qassam, a revolutionary leader in Palestine, is killed by British forces. 1936, a 6-month-long general strike takes place in Palestine to protest Jewish immigration. 1937, the Peel Commission recommends the partition of Palestine and transfer of Palestinians from land allocated to a Jewish state. This is where we're already seeing the land already occupied by Palestinians now starting to be partitioned as if it wasn't theirs, as if they didn't already belong to it. 1938, armed Zionist group Irgun launches a series of attacks against Palestinians. The political leadership of the Palestinians was now in exile in 1938. The Palestinian Revolution had reached its peak during this time, during the summer of 1938. July 7th saw the bombing of a market in Jerusalem, whereas July 8th saw the bombing of a bus station in Jerusalem. Let's see, what else? 1938, 1939, the British held dozens of military tribunals. The Nablus region was commanded by Mohammed Salih al-Hamad, who was killed during this time. And in 1938, Palestinians were beginning to form into more coordinated groups in their uprising against British occupation and Jewish immigration. 2 car bombs that were set off in a market in Haifa in 1938 killed 68 Palestinians. And in 1938, an underground Zionist paramilitary organization called Irgun began to increase the number of attacks against Arab targets. And in 1938, we saw the Jewish settlement guards, while with the British authorities disarming the Palestinians, they armed and equipped special Jewish forces to ostensibly act as protective militia for Jewish settlements. This is colonization. There's a reason why there is pushback against colonization. This is during the 20th century, and we live now in the 21st century. This shouldn't be happening anymore. This shouldn't be defended anymore. And yet we still are seeing this to this day. All eyes are on Rafah right now. Where were we, though? Let's see, 39. Britain smashes the 3-year-long Arab Revolt. 1942. Zionist conference is held at the Biltmore Hotel in New York City, solidifying U.S. Zionist relations. And we're seeing kind of the fruition of these relations now with the Biden administration standing behind Netanyahu and the unaliving of a mass number of people which equals to the definition of something that if I say it out loud will then get us censored. How insane is that? 1946, Irgun bombs the King David Hotel in Jerusalem, killing 91 people. Terrorists. Terrorists. 47, the UN adopts Resolution 181, a partition plan for Palestine. Palestinians reject it, because of course, it's their land. 1948, armed Zionist group Haganah bombs the Semirami's Hotel in Jerusalem. More than 20 people are killed. Again, Zionist terrorists. Zionism, terrorism, hand in hand. Zionist forces in February of 48 attacked the village of Qusara near Haifa, and this was like your earliest example of ethnic cleansing happening. Probably shouldn't say that one. Cleansing of a ethnic kind. See, May, the state of Israel is created, sparking regional conflict. The U.S. and Soviet Union recognize Israel immediately, which of course is going to cause issues in the area. The Stern Gang in between August and September assassinate Folke Bernadotte, a Swedish diplomat and the UN-appointed mediator in Palestine, because that just speaks that they want a two-state solution. December of 1948, UN General Assembly passes Resolution 194, affirming the right to return of Palestinian refugees. Not enough. Just not enough. In 1949, we see an armistice agreement between Israel and its neighboring Arab countries of Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, and Egypt. And we also see in December of that year that the UN establishes UNRWA, an agency for Palestinian refugees. 1950 to 1967. I haven't gone that far in the history yet. Let's just be clear here, right? 1950. Jordan assumes administrative control of the West Bank. 1956. Israel massacres Palestinians in the village of Kalkila, Kufr, Qasim, and Khan Yunis. I am sorry if I'm mispronouncing any of these. I am not good with names. But let it be said that the state of Israel massacred people, unalived people, on a greater toll than you would expect. Can't say what the words are for that. Can't say what the words are for that. 1964. The Palestinian Liberation Organization is formed in Cairo. 66. Israel mass unalives Palestinians in the village of As-Samu. Are you starting to see a pattern here? 1967. Israel occupies the rest of historic Palestine, including the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, as well as the Syrian Golan Heights and the Egyptian Sinai. The UN Security Council passes Resolution 242, calling on Israel to withdraw from territories it occupied in 1967. Let's just make one thing clear. Israel tends to not listen to the UN. As we've seen recently, they tend to rip up the UN Charter when they're told to not do mass unalivings. 1970. Israel attacks Palestinian fighters during the Black September in Jordan. 1973. The UN Security Council passes Resolution 338 following the October War, calling for a ceasefire and, once again, for Israel to withdraw from territories it occupied in 1967. Little hint, Israel doesn't like to listen. 1974. The Arab League recognizes the PLO as the sole legitimate representative body of the Palestinian people. Then we move to 1976. Israel confiscates thousands of hectares of land from Palestinian citizens. Mass protests organized in response were brutally put down. Now Land Day is commemorated every year. They celebrate these mass unalivings. Celebrate them. And continue to encroach more. Right now, as we speak, more and more settlers are streaming in to the homes that were recently occupied by Palestinians who were alive. Who were alive. Where were we? 1982. Israel invades Lebanon because, assholes. UN International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian people also happens in 1982. So a whole lot of good that did. 1987, the first Intifada is launched in the occupied Palestinian territory. Intifada, for any of you who don't know, is just an uprising. So, for any of those politicians out there who are whining and groping and crying and shit about Intifada, can go fuck themselves. 1988, the PLO accepts UN Resolution 242 and 338, recognizing the State of Israel. This was basically in order to probably not get mass unalived yet again. 1991, the Madrid Peace Conference ends without a breakthrough. And in 1992, more multilateral talks take place. But the Palestinians are no closer to statehood. Even now, with votes going on, I don't feel that we're any closer. Because countries like mine, the United States, decide that it wants to block the interest and the human rights of the Palestinian people and back Israel. Looking at you, Biden. 1993 to 2014. Now we're starting to get into some of these numbers where some of you may have been alive. In 1993, the PLO and Israel signed the Declaration of Principles on Interim Self-Government Arrangements. And in 1995, we see that the PLO and Israel sign, and it's PLO, I just say PLO, sorry. Sign an interim agreement granting the Palestinians some autonomy in certain parts of the West Bank and Gaza Strip. As you can see, the fact that they're only giving them some autonomy means that Israel did not see these people as humans already. There's going to be more and more of this, all right? 1997, the PLO and Israel sign an agreement that requires Israeli forces to partially withdraw from Hebron. 2000, the PLO and Israel renew final status negotiations at the Camp David II summit. 2002, Israel reoccupies Palestinian cities in the West Bank in the wake of the Second Intifada. Because, of course, there's going to be an uprising when you still have colonization happening, when you still have homes being taken away, when you still have olive trees being burned by the thousands. 2004, Yasser Arafat dies. 2005, Israel conducts its disengagement from Gaza. 2006, war breaks out between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon. 2008 saw the attacks by Israel into the Gaza Strip and what it called Operation Cast Lead. A lot of civilians died during that time. A lot. During that time, we also saw peace activists on 2 boats drop anchor in Gaza, breaking the Israeli blockade. 2012, Israel attacks Gaza once more in what it calls Operation Pillar of Defense. As you can probably guess, a lot of civilians are unalived. 2014, Israel launches the biggest assault on Gaza since 1967, Operation Protective Edge. Let me tell you something, a little hint. That's not going to be the biggest assault on Gaza afterwards. But it was the biggest at the time. 2015, Israel holds early elections for the 20th Knesset. The Likud party, led by Benjamin Netanyahu, wins again. And that kind of brings us into more of the now, where we see that in October 7th, yes, there was an attack by Hamas towards Israel. But one thing that's not talked about is that was because it was a retaliation for the unalivings that had happened just previous to then. Not to mention the fact that Israel had prior knowledge to this happening and decided to do nothing about it. So the blood of their citizens are on their own hands on this one. Their own hands. They have also shown that despite the fact that Hamas has offered over and over again to return hostages, that they refuse, because it was never about the hostages and returning them. It was always about taking more land and getting rid of the people who live there already, the Palestinians. We move into now, where we have seen that there are mass graves at the Al Sharif hospital where I believe it was 200 to 300 civilians were found bound. Bound. Women, children, elderly. And they were unalived by execution from the back of the head. This wasn't done by Hamas. And before you jump down my throat, fuck Hamas. They're pricks. That's easy to say, but F the people who are committing the mass unalivings that fit the exact definition that is set by the United Nations. And yet, for some reason, we can't call it that because we'll get censored. Make it make sense. Everyone has been pushed into the area called Rafah. And in this area, you have over 1 million refugees who are starving, who are going without water, who have no good shelter. Many of them just live in tents right now, if they're lucky. And what's happening to them? They're being bombed into oblivion by the state of Israel. We have to stand up and we have to keep fighting. We have seen for the past few weeks now that the students at a lot of these major universities are standing up and fighting back because they understand divesting from Israel takes money out of their pockets, which means less bullets and less bombs. And these students keep fighting because they're goddamn heroes. Goddamn heroes. We have seen police crackdowns on these kids who are only standing up to stop mass unalivings. It says a lot about this country when we put more weight on the unaliving of people that live abroad versus our own students here who are simply asking for it to stop. We've seen hit the microphone there. We have seen the mass media come out and completely portray these student protests as everything but what they are. A protest against the big old G word, the mass unalivings of people. I don't understand it. Why must we put all of our weight behind this when we all know it's wrong? We've seen what happened during World War II. We saw what happened with the Holocaust. Why are we letting this happen again? You know, the students are the ones that are honestly leading the path on this. Right now, there is a major movement going on that I've seen on Threads. I believe it's going on Twitter too and Instagram. But a mass blocking and unfollowing of major celebrities and companies that refuse to divest from Israel and refuse to stand against the mass unalivings of Palestinians. I urge you to do the same thing. Anybody on this platform or any other platform that refuses to use their voice to stand up and say something should not be heard. You heard it here. You heard it here first, folks. You heard it here first. I don't have any jokes to bounce off my boys today, so it's a little hard. So I'm a little bit more serious today. Plus, it's Mother's Day, and there's a lot of mothers who are not getting to celebrate this day in Rafah. There are many mothers who are not getting to celebrate this day in Palestine. But there are many mothers all around the world that are getting to celebrate this. And it's not right. But, you know, if you get the chance, I highly recommend if you can stand up, make your voice heard, let your politicians know for your local area, your representatives. Let them know that we must stand up and stop this. We have seen for the past 20, 30 years in the way that this country defends Israel in the United Nations, that they are all but our vassal. It's time to start treating them like it and make them stop. Call your representatives. Hell, call the goddamn White House. Let them know. Stop the mass unalivings of people in Palestine. But in a little bit lighter of a segment, moving on to the next part of Mother's Day, We've seen that many WWE stars and wrestling stars in general have come out in celebration of Mother's Day. We have Jade Cargill, who has wished Happy Mother's Day to all the fellow mommies out there in the world. Anthony Bowens has a Happy Mother's Day to his most amazing woman. We even got The Miz, who says Happy Mother's Day to the woman who amazes me daily. He has a great picture here of his family. Matt Cardona wishing people Happy Mother's Day, and mainly to his mother, though. Beautiful picture there. Matt Hardy, gotta do the same thing. Cora Jade's wishing a Happy Mother's Day out there to AJ Mendez. Brandy Rhodes, you can guess who took the picture. Trish Stratus out there wishing a Happy Mother's Day. Indy Hartwell out there. A lot of people wishing a Happy Mother's Day. And I hope you all had a Happy Mother's Day too, since you're listening to this either the day after or maybe a few days after. So, but I figure I move on then to what happened on this day in wrestling history before I cut out for the day, because I still have to edit this, put it together, export it, and then release it. It's a lot of work, and it's a little late at night. But let's see. May 12th, in 1989, Roddy Piper makes a return to the ring after a 2-year retirement at a WWF house show in Los Angeles, California. He beat Ted DiBiase in that match, which is a good thing because screw that guy. 1996, we saw Ahmed Johnson defeat Hunter Hearst Helmsley in the finals to win the WWF Kuwait Cup tournament. At the same event in Kuwait City, Shawn Michaels retained the WWF World title against Stone Cold Steve Austin. 1997, the live edition of WWF Raw from Delaware ended on air with an infamous incident in real-life rivalry between Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels, and was discussed in depth by the two Hall of Fame legends in their sit-down interview with Jim Ross for the Rivalries DVD that was released in the 2010s. Their rivalry ran deep for a long time. We've talked about it, actually, on the podcast prior, about the Montreal Screwjob and all that. Check that out. I want to say that was one of the first 10 episodes we did. I don't remember. 2003, WWE Raw from Philadelphia. Kevin Nash and Chris Jericho. Where's your wife on January 6, 2021, Chris? Where was she? She helping with an insurrection or something? Maybe? No, of course not. She went back into the past and watched you fight in a no contest match. That's of course what happened. But 2003 also saw Goldberg defeat Christian in a steel cage match that year, which was a lot cooler of a match to begin with. 2004, TNA Wrestling announced that they will begin production of a weekly TV show for Fox Sports Net. This would put an end to their weekly kind of pay-per-view model. 2006, Christian Cage and Colt Cabana defeated Bryan Danielson and Christopher Daniels in the main event of Ring of Honor How We Roll. 2007, wow, I said that bad. 2007, the first ever Ring of Honor Respect Is Earned pay-per-view takes place at the Manhattan Center in New York City. Man, there's some goods on here. There's some goods. 2008 saw Randy Orton pinning John Cena at the main event of Raw in Detroit, Michigan. 2008, TNA Impact taping in Orlando. Christian Cage, Rhino, and Samoa Joe defeating Booker T, Brother Devon, and a 6-person tag. Oh, actually, you know what? I think I might have actually watched that one. Now that I think about it, not live or anything like that. No, long after the fact. I think I seen that match though. 2012, Ultimo Dragon retained the NWA Junior Heavyweight title in a 3-way elimination match against Hajime Ohara and Ultimo Guerrero. The main event of Toriuman Mexico Dragon Mania 7 from Mexico City. Didn't see that. Not gonna lie. 2012 also saw Rob Terry defeating Johnny Spade for the OVW heavyweight title. Never saw that. Let me know if you did. 2012, Johnny Gargano retained the Dragon Gate Open, the Freedom Gate Championship against AR Fox in the main event of Evolve 13. I know Johnny Gargano. Did not see that. There's going to be a lot of those probably. Let's see, there's so many from 2012. At Ring of Honor Border Wars in Toronto, Kevin Steen defeated Davey Richards to win the ROH World Heavyweight title in the main event. 2014, Batista and Roman Reigns fought to a no contest in the main event of WWE Raw. I actually kind of remember that. This is during that time where I would pop in and out like for a thing here and there. And I want to say I might have seen that match. I just know that was during that time where I didn't really like wrestling that much, and I did not like Roman. 2018, at the WS Wrestling TV tapings in Norwich, England, the WS Tag Team Championship changed hands when Grado and British Bulldog Jr. defeated Leston Rees and Kip Sabian. Didn't see that. Let me know if you did. 2019, Minoru Suzuki defeated Shay Samuels in the main event of Rev Pro Mayhem. And apparently Doug Basham has a birthday on this day, so yeah, there you go. I know it's a little bit of a short one. Kind of had to put this together last second. Didn't know what I was going to do it on, but I figured, you know what? I'm going to do it. And so I did it. And I want to say I held it together at least long enough to put something in here for you guys. We'll get back to like regular programming and everything next week. But still, I do want to say, if you get the chance, please stand up and make your voices heard about the mass unalivings that follow the definition that is used by the United Nations, and yet we're still not allowed to say it. I think you know the word I mean. I think we all know. But make your voices heard about it. Talk to your local representatives. Talk to your members of Congress, your members of the Senate. Talk to the goddamn presidency itself. Let them all know. We don't stand for this. We're Americans. You taught us to be against this stuff, and now we're standing up against it. I hope you all have a good night. I hope you all had a wonderful Mother's Day. And you know what? I'll see y'all next time. Have a good night, everybody.